All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the City of St. Catharines online open house for 70 Eastchester Avenue zoning bylaw amendment. My name is Evan Och. I am planner with the City of St. Catharines. I will be leading the presentation tonight. Sorry, just getting set up here. So we do have one member of the public on the call, as well as the applicant. So just ask them both to mute their mics during the presentation, and then they will be called upon to speak a little later in the evening. So the location of the site is 70 Eastchester Avenue. It runs between Eastchester Avenue to the north and Queenston Street to the south. It's immediately west of the Trillium Rail and Geo Rail line that runs through St. Catharines. It's surrounded by, well, residential primarily to the east, mixed use of institutional, residential, and commercial to the west, residential to the south, and then mix of residential, commercial, and even industrial uses to the north. So process for the application is that we received the zoning bylaw amendment application on December 21st, 2022, and the application was deemed complete on December 31st, 2022. Under the Planning Act, the city must accept and process complete applications. So by the city having this open house and starting this process, it's not implying that we support or will be necessarily approving this application. We are following provincial statutes by having a formal planning process. Public participation is part of that process, which is why we're having the open house tonight, to inform the public. There will be opportunities to submit questions or additional feedback going in the future. The application has been circulated to city departments and applicable external agencies, example being the Niagara region, as they are they have jurisdiction over Queenston Street, or other example is Geo Rail, because they own the land and operate the rail line immediately to the east of the site. And again, the application is not being considered for approval tonight. Ultimate decision on approval will be made by a city council at a future council meeting. Formal notice of that public meeting will be sent out. Usually we aim for around 30 days prior to the actual meeting taking place, and will be posted on signs on the property, posted on the city's website, much like how notice for this public open house was sent out. Actually, just so my role in this process is just to review the application, arrange public meetings, compare the application against relevant city, regional, and provincial planning policies, and to develop an independent recommendation to council, and it is ultimately council's decision on whether the proposal will be approved. Planning context, just so public is aware of the context in which staff or city policies are developed and that council has to make their decision within. So the city of St. Catharines is forecasted to grow to 171,890 people by 2051. And that is 35,000 more people than were counted in St. Catharines in the 2021 census. The Government of Ontario has recently set a target of building 11,000 new dwellings in St. Catharines by 2032. It is anticipated that 52% of the growth in St. Catharines to 2031 will be accommodated on vacant lands within the built boundary of the city. Provincial, regional, and city policies are developed to accommodate forecasted growth. All of this being said doesn't mean that every development application that gets submitted should be approved. Staff still do their independent review and analysis and provide recommendations based on the merits of each application. The current proposal is for a 10-story mixed-use building containing ground floor commercial units and 92 apartment dwelling units on the 9 stories above the ground floor. The proposal includes 187 parking spaces, with 40 at surface level and 147 being accommodated underground. The proposal has a density of 199 units per hectares of land, and that's a method that planners use to calculate how much growth or how many residents will be accommodated on a piece of land. Sorry, someone else is joining the meeting. Hello, Anastasia. We've started the presentation, so please just keep your microphone off and your camera off until the presentation is completed and I call on you to speak. Okay, sorry about that. So the proposal has various zoning deficiencies, such as yard setbacks, landscape buffers, and building height, which is why the zoning bylaw amendment has been submitted. The application is to rezone the lands from medium density mixed use, or M1 in our zoning bylaw, to medium/high density mixed use with a special provision, which would be M2-172. The current official plan designation for the property is mixed use. This is an official plan designation that has been in place since 2012. It's surrounding an area that is mixed use to the west, north, and south, and then to the east along Blair Crescent and moving towards Grantham Avenue, it's low density residential. The current zoning for the site is M1, and again, much like with the official plan designations, it's in an area that is surrounded by mixed-use lands to the northwest and south, and then to the east is R2 zoning, low-density residential, traditional neighborhood, and those are for the properties that front onto Blair and moving towards Grantham Avenue. And then a little further to the south is land zone medium-density residential, and that's the Avery Crescent area. And once again, the proposed zoning is M2-172. The applicant has, so 172 is the special provision, which would look at some of the zoning deficiencies that need to be addressed for the proposal to be built. The proposed zoning changes on the site, so moving from M1 to M2, and then also seeking some changes to what is permitted in the M2 zone. So maximum lot area, the request is to increase from what is permitted in the M1 and the M2 zones, being 4,000 square meters to 4,680 square meters, and that is in recognition of the fact that the site is existing and it's slightly oversized compared to what is permitted. The maximum front yard, and we consider the Eastchester lot line to be the front lot line for the site. The maximum front yard currently permitted in the M1 zone is 24 meters. With the location of the building on the site, it is the request is to increase it to 46.45 meters. The maximum interior side yard, that's the yard on either side of the building, to the east, there is no maximum interior side yard. There's a minimum of 1.2 meters. The applicants have requested to impose a maximum of 15 meters, and that is in recognition of the required setback from the railway property being 15 meters. The minimum rear yard, and so that is the Queenston Street lot line, is considered the rear lot line. Current zoning M1 permits a 3-meter setback. The M2 zone changes that a little bit, but they are requesting to maintain the 3 meters that is currently permitted in the M1 zone. The maximum building height, so right now in the M1 zone, there's a maximum building height of 20 meters. The M2-172, or sorry, the M2 zone does not have a maximum building height. However, the applicants are requesting as part of the application to impose a maximum building height of 32.8 meters, which would represent about 10 stories. The applicants have requested an increase to the maximum residential density. So in the M1 zone, limits on units per hectare is 100 units. The M2 zone has a limit of 198 units per hectare, with 92 units on the lot size proposed. It's actually 199 units per hectare. The zoning bylaw requires a 3-meter landscape buffer between the parking lot and the eastern lot line. That's the lot line abutting the railway. It does require a 3-meter setback. The applicants are requesting a 0-meter setback, which will really be enough land to accommodate a chain link fence and no additional plantings. And then the final request is a setback from a platform structure, in this case being a balcony, to the rear lot line. This is along Queenston Street. The M1 zone requires a 4.5 meter setback from a balcony to the rear lot line. The applicants are requesting a 3-meter setback, and that is for balconies that are really just, I believe, on the 9th floor. So this is the proposed site as a whole. I realize this isn't the clearest, so I do have it broken down in next slides. But this is just showing that the site is running from Eastchester to Queenston Street, and the location of the building on the site, primarily hugging the western lot line to accommodate the required 15-meter setback from the railway property. I did receive a comment from a member of the public. The setback on the western lot line is 1.2 meters. That is meeting the required side yard setback both in the M1 and the M2 zone. So there is no reduction to the interior side yard setback to the west as part of this application. So the proposed site plan, this is the northern half of the site. The site, so this is Eastchester is obviously on the left-hand side of the screen. The railway line is the dashed burgundy line that runs across the north. So this is showing the front yard setback being 46.45 meters. And sorry, I should have also said that the lot line is highlighted in blue. So we're seeing the front yard setback of 46.45 meters, the setback from the eastern lot line of 15 meters, and then we're seeing the staggered roof heights. So for the part of the building that's closest to the street, the roof height is 8.5 meters, and then it steps up to 11.5 to 26.5, and then to 32.8 meters. Then this is the southern portion of the site, again showing the 15-meter setback from the eastern lot line, and evidently the 0-meter landscape buffer along that lot line, because the road with curbing will be hugging right up against that lot line with enough room for a fence. The setback from Queenston Street lot line is 3 meters. And then the building height, 32.8 meters at the highest, and then dropping down to 26.5 meters for the balconies on the 9th floor that face Queenston Street. And one additional item to note is that the region is requiring 2 meters of land to be dedicated to the region gratuitously, free of charge, and that land will be incorporated into the Queenston Street right-of-way. Some of the drawings make note to a road widening. The road is not actually proposed to be widened as part of this application. That's just the technical language for what's happening. It's land that's being added to the road allowance. So the setback of 3 meters is actually to the new lot line that will be after the dedication is taken. The setback from the current lot line along Queenston Street is actually going to be 5 meters. And once again, showing the interior side yard setback on the western half of the building at 1.2 meters. The proposed elevations of the building. This is the east elevation. So as you see as you were traveling towards downtown on Queenston Street, showing that the 10 stories is for about 2/3 of the building, and then stepping down as we move towards Eastchester. Then the western half of the building, or sorry, the western elevation of the building. This is the opposite side, significantly less windows compared to the east side. That's due to accommodating elevators and staircases. So some common questions that I've received so far this evening, or sorry, in the lead up to this evening. So I received a lot of questions and concerns about traffic. So neither the city nor Niagara Region required a transportation impact study to be submitted with this application. The city's transportation staff determined that due to the scope of the proposal, no road improvements would be required to access this specific site. Eastchester Avenue is under the city's jurisdiction. Queenston Street is under the region's jurisdiction. I cannot speak for why the region did not require a transportation impact study for Queenston Street. However, I imagine the response would be quite similar to the city's, that the scope and scale of the development would not warrant increases or sorry, improvements to Queenston Street in terms of signalization or turn lanes into this development. The site access. So the site, as proposed, is proposing access off of Eastchester Avenue and Queenston Street. The city has circulated the application to GeoRail for comments on the proximity of the driveways to the level crossings on Eastchester Avenue and Queenston Street. GeoRail is still reviewing the proposal. City and regional staff are also going to be reviewing the proposal in terms of entrances and sight lines and angles of approach to the accesses. Privacy and shadows. City staff are still reviewing the shadow impact study that was submitted with the application, and privacy concerns will be assessed in preparation of staff's recommendation. Tenure or form of ownership. The applicant has not indicated as part of this application if the building is going to be rental or condominium. In terms of this application, the zoning bylaw does not make a distinction in ownership structure. All of the residential units are considered apartment dwellings under the zoning bylaw. Parking. So the proposal requires 125 parking spaces to accommodate all residential and commercial uses. The applicant has proposed 187 parking spaces with a distribution I mentioned before, but 40 at surface level and 100 more than 100 underground. The zoning bylaw does not regulate tenureship of parking spaces, so we cannot control through this application where the commercial tenants will park, where the residential tenants will park. As of right now, the site is meeting or rather exceeding the parking requirements. And it's worth noting as well that this site does include a loading zone for trucks. So that could be for commercial deliveries or residents moving in. There is a loading zone and loading bay for trucks on site. Environmental assessment. So given the site's former use as part of a railway corridor, environmental site assessments will need to be completed to deem the lands clean and acceptable for residential use prior to building permits being issued. So that could be as much as a record of site condition, which is a filing with the provincial government deeming this application is meeting all relevant environmental criteria and is safe for residential use. Any remediation work that is done on the site will need to be done to stringent provincial regulations, and all material removed from the site, should it come to that, would have to be disposed of in a safe manner in accordance with provincial regulations. Servicing and infrastructure. So a functional servicing report was submitted with the application. The city's development engineering technicians and review these applications and review the materials that are submitted with to determine if existing infrastructure is sufficient or whether additional infrastructure is required to service the development. And that will be that will feed into the recommendation that staff prepare. Construction methods. So the zoning bylaw cannot regulate construction methods, including pile driving. The city cannot, nor can the city compel applicants to undertake pre-construction surveys, which is where a contractor would come and take photos, do an inspection of your house before construction, come back after construction to see if any damage has been if there's been any damage that could be attributed to that construction. We cannot compel builders to undertake pre-construction surveys, but it is in the applicant's interest to do so. In terms of construction methods, that would be something that would be determined by building code, and construction would take place in accordance with the city's noise bylaw. Development constraints. So there are two development constraints on the site. So firstly, there's a regional sanitary sewer main that runs along the western side of the site. Even though the site is under private ownership, there is an easement in place for this sewer main to be there. The sewer main is owned and maintained by the region. It's in use. So should this application be approved, and should the project proceed to the point of construction, the applicant will be required to relocate the sewer to the eastern side of the site, approximately under the driveway and parking spaces. The applicant is required to cover the full cost of the work to relocate the sewer, and the design and contractors and work that is carried out would have to be approved by the region and inspected by the region. It is a piece of regional infrastructure, and the region is going to want the relocated main to be built to the region's standards so that the infrastructure does not fail. And again, all costs, including design, would be borne by the applicants or owners of the site. Development constraints. The second one, and I mentioned it before, is the rail line on the eastern half of the site. So the proposed building is located 15 meters from the eastern lot line to meet setback requirements on proximity of buildings to railway corridors. That 15 meters is measured from the lot line, the shared lot line, not from the railway tracks. So no building can be built above ground closer than 15 meters to that eastern lot line. So that concludes an overview of the development. All application materials were shared on the city's website, www.stcatharines.ca/development. For those that do not have internet access or cannot access the material, it can be viewed in hard copy at City Hall. And as any additional material that is submitted will be uploaded to this website. Next steps. So please submit questions, comments, or concerns to staff for consideration and review of this application and formulation of staff's recommendation to council. Staff report will be prepared and made publicly available prior to the decision, or prior to the meeting and prior to the decision of City Council. Public meeting in front of City Council will be held at a future date. Notice of the public meeting will be mailed out to surrounding properties with a sign posted on site. The format of that meeting, we are still doing online meetings, but some accommodation can be made for folks that wish to attend and speak directly to council. If you wish to be notified of this meeting, you can get in touch using the contact information on the next slide. That said, if you did receive a notice in the mail, you will receive the next notice in the mail as well. But certainly if you do contact me, I will let you know. If I have your email address, I will also email out a notice prior to that meeting. So thank you for your participation this evening. And public engagement is an integral part of the planning process in Ontario. So please submit comments, questions, and concerns about the proposal to myself, Evan Och with Planning and Building Services. My email address is eacs@stcatharines.ca. Phone number is 905-688-5601, extension 1724. And if you wish to mail your comments, P.O. Box 3012, St. Catharines, Ontario, L2R 7C2. Alternatively, you can use either the mail slot or drop comments off in person at the planning counter on the ground floor of City Hall. And just while I have people's attention, this is unrelated to this application, but the city will be hosting an open house for the former General Hospital site, 142 Queenston Street, on February 23rd. We've received an official plan amendment application, zoning bylaw amendment application, and plan of subdivision application proposals for 1,100 dwelling units and apartment buildings with a mix of townhouses as well, and some ground floor commercial along Queenston Street. So I know that this the site and many of the people attending this session would be very interested in what's happening on the former general site. So please make note of this. And again, it will be in person at the St. Catharines Collegiate on February 23rd. All right, back to 70 Eastchester. So that concludes my presentation. I will now turn it over to the applicants, Ella Baroglu, if you wish to say a few words.
Thanks, Evan. That was a great presentation. And I think you summarized it very well. So covered everything. So I have nothing to add at this point. If there's a question from the other participant, anything I can help, so I will be happy.
All right.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. All right, it's now time for the two folks who registered to attend. So I'm calling on you in order of registration. So first up, we do have Anastasia. Anastasia, if you have any statements or questions you wish to make, this is your opportunity. To unmute yourself, turn your camera on if you wish.
There we go. Hi. There's actually two of us today. So my husband and I are concerned about a few different things. One, I'm wondering if they're planning on putting any charging for cars into the building. They have so many attendants that they're expecting, and with the changes in what we're selling for vehicles, are they going to plan on putting any chargers into the apartment complex?
So from a city perspective, as of right now, that isn't something that we require in the zoning bylaw. That is something that we are looking at in terms of how can we require it, what the percentage would be. So I just want you to be aware that is something that's on the city's radar, certainly. Good. And what that would look like in terms of how big those parking spaces would have to be. So there is some consideration being given to that. So, but Ella, if you wish to respond to that, it may be too early in the application process to say.
Yeah, but yes, but we're definitely thinking about it. Yes, sure, for sure. I can say. I don't know how many, but yes, there will be.
All right.
Stations for the electric cars. Yes.
Now you said something about a chain link fence. Is it supposed to be between the railway and the building? that they're talking about?
It would be along the, it would be on the lot line between the railway and 70 Eastchester.
Okay. So I have some concerns with that because right along that corridor, we do have quite a few coyotes and other types of animals that keep down the rodent population. And as you probably know, being part of the city, this area has in the last few years, because of the hospital being taken down and the old brickworks being put in, that a lot of those rodents have started to spread into Merritt. And I'm concerned that the coyotes, as well as the birds of prey, won't be able to get around that chain link fence as easily as people might think, and that we need to leave that corridor open.
So I do live in central St. Catharines, and so I hear exactly what you're saying about rodent population, and also the prey that have moved into, or the predators that have moved into
That area, yeah. Well, we do
those
have
numbers down.
it's
in terms of the
golf
chain
course
link,
right there, right?
oh, exactly. In terms
Right.
of the chain link fence, that is unfortunately a requirement of the railway. That any new development that takes place along the railway corridor, it does have to be at least a chain link fence. That is something that we could look at as we move into should this be approved and we move into the site plan stage. Ways of accommodating wildlife with the fence design is something that could be explored, but it's not a city requirement. It is a railway federal requirement.
So that's something that I would have to approach the railway about, making sure that they made sure the wildlife could move freely through there.
Exactly, because I think if you go down to Avery Crescent, there is the chain link fence, and so what would be required on this site would be quite similar to what's on Avery Crescent.
Okay.
It's just a chain link fence that pedestrians and therefore wildlife can't easily get through.
It doesn't stop the pedestrians and wildlife right now, because there's obviously no chain link fence there right now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm also wondering about, we're talking about green and everything that's going on. Sorry, I'm trying to write some of this down as well at the same time. So I noticed that they are putting in some solar panels, which is great, but Ella, are you also thinking of putting in gardens on the rooftops as well? And I noticed that the city does promote that. They do have some subsidies if you do plan on putting those in. Are you thinking of tapping into those subsidies and doing some rooftop gardens and protecting those trees in that area that you're building in?
Yes, so we have proposed fourth floor rooftop garden, a patio area, I can say. So we will have some greens there, definitely. And also another idea, right now it's all idea stages, like there's nothing firm right now, but we would like to combine with the solar panels with the green roof. So it's not going to be trees, but it's going to be green, some type of plants for the birds and other insects. So this is right now, it's all concept ideas, but we'll see in the future when we develop the site plan. Yeah.
I noticed that you also want to put in commercial space in there, and I'm wondering if you're thinking of doing some feasibility studies. If you drive between along Queenston Street between the railroad tracks and Niagara, you'll see that there's several businesses that or business fronts that are empty. There's at least something like 10 to 11, one of them being the large bingo hall that's been out of business for a few years now. So how do you plan on attracting businesses and keeping them in that space, considering how tight it is to get in and out of there?
Yeah, this is, I think, the owners need to make this type of decisions. So it's kind of out of my expertise. So I'm an architect, and I don't know how the decision will be done.
Okay, so these are
regarding
not the questions to
commercial.
ask you. Sorry about that then.
I know
So
it's
that's at the next stage
Thank
then, I
you.
guess.
yes. Okay.
So
Thank you.
Nope,
I guess-
that's everything that I had.
just to speak a little bit to that on a more general citywide level, the city complete a land needs assessment process in the last few years, and it was actually determined that St. Catharines is deficient in commercial space for projected population growth. That said, like you have highlighted, the localized issue along Queenston Street with vacant storefronts is one concern, but citywide, it is, we do need more. So a feasibility study for the commercial units wasn't required as part of the application. I suppose you could anticipate that with potential redevelopment of the general hospital site, there's viability for those commercial uses along Queenston Street will increase.
Well, we're hoping. We are definitely hoping, right? But it's if somebody doesn't go into them, then it's not going to draw people to want to actually live in that apartment building, because they'll have derelict commercial space at the bottom, which is a big concern. We also have a large homeless population in this area as well, as you probably know, and and quite a few of them actually live in that little space between Queenston and Eastchester. So yeah, it would be nice to find out if they plan on doing something to keep businesses in that area, if they're going to put them in. Thanks.
Okay.
That's all I have today.
All right. Thank you, Anastasia. And I know you were taking notes, but just to let you know, and let people viewing on YouTube know, this open house will be archived on YouTube for at least a few weeks, if not longer. So you can go back and watch it over again if you wish. Al, it's now your turn. If you have anything additional you wish to ask or add.
Hi, yes. I'm more to the side of the construction end of it. And I am very worried about how far down you're going to have to dig, what kind of compaction is going to be happening, and what measures are going to be taken, because I'm the closest to the lot. And I know I have old foundation from the 30s, and I know the concrete isn't as well back then as it is today. And really, that's my biggest one of all of it. The other thing is I shouldn't say that. I know you're still doing the shadow study, but it's taken, I have morning sun, let's say from 6:30 to 12:30, 1 o'clock, depending on the time of year. I'm not going to have any of that. So one of my questions is, can it stay, if it stays M1 or R2, does all this soil work still have to happen? Like as deep as there's, like, with the pile driving and so on and so forth?
So as of right in the zoning bylaw right now, a building 20 meters in height could be constructed. I don't know if I'm not an engineer, so I don't know if it would require the same types of piles, the same type of excavation for a 20-meter high building versus a 32-meter high building. But so I mean, potentially it would, the construction method would be, if not the same, quite similar depending on the size of the building that is being built.
Okay, so if it stays, M1 is also townhouses also, am I correct?
M1 is also townhouses.
Townhouses.
Yep.
So if it was to stay with the townhouses, you're only gonna have the one basement, not double like the proposal is. Again, is there as much groundwork involved in that end of it? And the other thing is, if going that route, where the plan is now, where they have the parking lot, could they not build the townhouses there and put the road over top of the sewer line that's existing now and not have to dig it out?
So the sewer line that's existing now it runs on the western half of the site, but it really constrains any development on the site, right? Because there's that 15-meter setback from the rail property line.
Mhm. Could that 15-meter not be used as the construction of the house?
No.
Townhouses?
Can't put houses, can't put anything that a person would live in within that 15 meters. Can't put anything that a person would occupy, even in terms of a commercial building. Nothing can happen in that 15 meters. So in the event of a train derailment or something, heaven forbid, there wouldn't be a structure immediately next to the railway corridor.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that I'm not advocating one way or the other for development on the site, but just if the site is going to be developed, it has to be on the western side, and as part of that, the force main, sorry, the sewer main would need to be relocated, and so then you're looking at the same level of excavation for the site.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And as well, any required remediation because of the history of the site being a railway corridor. So extensive excavation would likely be required.
Right. Okay. Like I go into a lot more detail with my presentation that I sent in for city council. Here, I'm just kind of getting the gist of what's going on. The other question, or not question, statement I have is, there was a study done when they were doing the Woodburn estates on Avery and Woodburn and all that area. And they were talking about doing putting a road down along the railroad tracks to come in the backside of that subdivision.
Right.
And they said it couldn't happen because of too dangerous for the line of sight. Now, unfortunately, I didn't have any pictures to send in with the letter, but at the bottom there, I sat in my truck and you cannot see Woodburn Avenue. And that's looking to the west. If you're looking to the east, you can't see, what's that street called? Ravine.
Oh, Ravine, yeah.
You can't see Ravine. So, and I know the traffic is fast down here. That was the concern back then. The thing is, nothing has changed. Those retaining walls are still there and everything. So does there have to be an access onto Queenston Street? Could that not be used as a fire lane instead?
That is so. So Queenston Street is just to start it from the top. Queenston Street is a regional road. The region reviewed prior to the application being made. The region reviewed and provided comments and did not have any objection at that point to a access off of Queenston Street. The region was circulated this application. I have not received comments back from the region yet, but one of the things that the region would be reviewing in that application is the access onto their road. So I can't speak for why the region had an issue with Avery Crescent being extended or punched through to Queenston Street, and why they may not have a concern with this application.
Well, we were told it was line of sight, which was too dangerous. Yeah. Now, the other thing is, was there a sun study done aside from the shadow study? 'Cause I guess there was the solstice thing. Early in during the rush hour, it's in the morning between 7:30 and 8:30. The sun coming up from the east is absolutely blinding. You cannot see past those the retaining walls. And in the summertime, in the evening, at the home time, it's bad coming from the west.
Right.
So I hope they look into that part, because again, we've seen many of close calls and we've seen rear end jobs
Yeah.
done. So I'm also worried about the kids going to school down Queenston Street, because that's the way they come. And some people today just don't care.
Yeah. Yeah. No, fair enough. I mean, traffic calming is a concern we hear about throughout the city. No, so that is, we will have to wait for the region's comments. And once those come in, those will be going to council as well as public comments. So I don't want to say, I can't presuppose what the region is going to say in their comments.
Right. Or something else, I just draw a blank. Oh, what precautions are going to be taken, and what securities do I have for my property from the builders?
So common practice is to do pre and post construction surveys where they come around and photograph footings, foundations, piles, before and then after construction to see if there's been any damage. Homeowners also do their own documentation just for peace of mind. And then it's any damage that is done to the property, any potential damage done to your property would be either a civil action against the developer, in homeowners insurance. It really becomes a civil matter between homeowner and the developer. It's not something that the city gets involved in, right? There's construction methods under the building code, and as long as what's being proposed is meeting code, we issue the permit, and we can't control interactions with third parties, like damage to neighboring properties, as part of normal construction practices.
So let's say a chunk of my foundation falls apart. I got to go after who? The builder, or go through my insurance first and they deal with it?
Either way, depends on your insurance provider, but it would be up to you to pursue action, unless there's some sort of construction survey that is done and the builder has insurance to the process might be a little easier, but yeah, it would be up to you.
Okay. Okay, those are a couple of questions that I had, and hopefully more will be answered during city council. This is just like a talk and tell kind of thing, right? There's no arguing points here or there or anything like that, right? Okay.
No. Yeah, exactly. So no decision, like I said, no decision is being made tonight. Staff, we're listening to the public. We're doing our reviews, and we will be making a recommendation. But there's a lot that will feed into it.
Right. Okay. All right. Thanks, Evans.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay. Thank you, Al.
Okay, bud.
Yeah, thank you, Evan. Thanks everybody.
Okay.
Thank you.
So thank you. So that concludes our presentation. And like I said, feel free to get in touch with me with any further questions, comments, or concerns you may have. I will just share my contact information one last time. So again, email me or give me a call, drop off hard copies of your letters. And we will certainly read and review every comment that's submitted. All right. So thank you again, everyone, for coming out, and have a good evening.
Good evening.
Good
Thank
evening.
you.
Thank you. Thanks for that.